So maybe a good starting place. Tell me a little bit about what prompted you to write the book in the first place. Was there like a spark, a moment, or was it just something that's kind of been on your heart and mind for a while?
It's actually an accidental book. I did not intend to write it. So last year, after Essential Wisdom for Leaders of Every Generation came out.
I'm going to move your microphone a little bit closer.
Sure. All right, thanks. So after Essential Wisdom came out, I found myself in a increasingly reflective phase, doing lots of long walks, lots of thinking, lots of reflecting. And out of that period came a series of blog posts. I just found myself looking to the past, thinking about where I've been. I've always been a sort of a look backwards and reflect versus looking forward kind of guy. But I was very intently in that place for months. And the fruit of that reflective period was about 14 or 15 different blog posts. And my style of writing, I looked at that pile of work and I said, I think there's a book.
Yeah.
So I just sort of locked myself away and wrote an additional 5 or 6 brand new chapters. And what came out of that was Upon Reflection. So it was not a book I intended to write, but it's a book that I felt almost compelled to write. And I'm glad I did.
So you start off, you said something right there. You said you've always been kind of a look backwards, kind of to look forward kind of guy.
Sure.
I don't know a lot of people who necessarily do that. So the whole first section, part 1, is learning from the past.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that so important for us?
In our professional work, I do very similar work. I think we both meet people every day that are always chasing. They're always focusing on what's next. And I see value in looking into the future, but I've always found, and I think I learned this from my parents and wise mentors over the years, it's always a good idea to think about where you've been. So as I get older, more and more, I just think about, what have I learned? Where have I failed? Where have I succeeded? What are the lessons that I can draw from every encounter, everything that I work on, family, personal work? I mean, whatever it is, I find that if I just think about where I've been and what I've done, there's usually a nugget or two that comes out of that reflective moment. So as I get older, I've learned more and more to value that. And I talk about it a lot in my work. And I think this book really reflects a lot of that thinking.
So are there ever cases where you look back and you say to yourself, wow, I maybe haven't moved the needle as much as I wanted to there, or I feel like I'm kind of I'm seeing a pattern that I want to change. Is that ever sometimes the outcome?
Daily.
Okay.
I often look back and see, gosh, I've just got to make some changes. I've got to do some things differently. So yeah, and it can apply to something as simple as my health. I see bad routines, foods I'm eating, things I need to do differently with exercise. Maybe it's the way that I engage with my family. I've seen some patterns where maybe I've been a little too stressed or anxious and focused on, work, when I need to really put that aside and think about my family. In fact, the very first chapter of the book is titled Savor the Moment. And it's me looking back through the prism of a recent vacation that was it was a great vacation filled with memories, but it made me think about all the vacations where I wasn't as present as I should have been. Hence the name Savor the Moment, because I really figured in that vacation, I realized that I need to savor every moment with these people who I love. And I look back daily and say, lots of patterns I need to change.
So it's almost doing that kind of assessment of where have I made progress, and doing a little bit of healthy celebration around that.
Sure.
And acknowledging, where you've kind of grown and learned and how you're in a different place, but also the places where maybe you still have opportunity to grow and learn.
Absolutely. And I think there's something very key to make all of this work. There's kind of a glue that makes all this work, a secret sauce. It's not enough just to look back. You have to look back on moments where you've actually been fully present. You have to be able to look back and remember that conversation with a loved one, or maybe that difficult dialogue with a client or a colleague at work. And not only just remember, oh yeah, we had a conversation, but what did we talk about? How did we both feel? How did I show up? Did I show up well? What would I have said differently if I could? So I think it's very important, if you're going to be reflective, to also have things to reflect on. So you need to be present with people when you're with them.
Yeah. So you can have those kind of, those points, those moments where you can really say, did I, given I was all in, did I show up the way I wanted to? Was it really how I wanted to be? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then you move into part 2, which is practical lessons for busy leaders, which I think is such an important kind of element for us. And I mean, there's so many things in here I've heard you talk about so many times. One of them in here that I think just hearing you do different talks to leaders and hearing them just resonate with certain concepts, one of them is this whole idea of time thieves.
Yeah.
So would love for you to just unpack that a little bit when you talk about time thieves, because as I've heard you say before, I'm butchering this, Randy, so you have to give me lots of grace, my friend. But essentially, our calendars rule us, but we need to be more of a masters of our calendars. We need to take back control.
Sure.
But realistically, most everyone listening to this is saying, yeah, I basically just follow whatever Microsoft Outlook tells me to do every day. I just follow,
right.
Ping 15 minutes, I got to meet. Okay, I go to that meeting. I just follow whatever it tells me. And there's time thieves that can jump in there and grab a hold of our calendar and then yank the steering wheel to the left and to the right. Mm-hmm. So share a little bit more about what is a time thief and
Sure.
how do you stop that?
That is one of my favorite chapters. Every now and then, and it doesn't happen very often, I do feel like I get a burst of inspiration that will show up in my writing. And the way that chapter starts out is I describe a very familiar crime scene. And the crime scene is your calendar. And you think about all the crimes that are committed on your calendar every single day. So what the chapter does is it talks about the various ways that we lose time. And I identify a number of often, innocent time thieves that are stealing time. So when people schedule meetings with you with no agendas, you're not really sure what your role is in the meeting. You're asked to be on a 2-hour conference call, but you find out after the call that you actually had no role. You were just there. When people invite you and 3 people from your team to come to a meeting when really only one of you needed to show up. There are so many different ways that people steal our time. Again, it's not malicious. It's just, I think corporate cultures are trained that, in order to really do our jobs, we've got to be in meetings all day. We've got to be in front of each other. And yet that's not really a very effective way to do our jobs. One of the statistics I cite in the chapter is last year, I can't remember who did the survey, but 73% of meetings in American businesses were deemed unproductive. That blows my mind. 73%.
Wow.
So you think about time theory from the perspective of just unproductive meetings. So the chapter really goes through all the various ways to not only identify them, but some respectfully candid ways that you can engage with those time thieves and start to get them to stop stealing your time. It's this idea of saying no.
Yeah.
I will no longer do this. Let me give you an alternative.